January winter meeting. We might have the same temperature that you do down in North Carolina, Chip. I don't know.
Yeah, it's in the 30s right at the moment.
Really? Wow. I think that's what we're at.
I couldn't say, no advantage to going down there.
No. Amazing. Crazy weather. So anyway, thanks for coming. And I want to acknowledge and thank Rockingham Free Library and Anne for helping out today, get us set up here with our new owl camera and audio, which you guys can't see, but it allows the Zoom people to see basically everybody in the room, and we can see all of you. And the owl is from the Brooks Memorial Library in Brattleboro. They allowed me to check out their circulating owl camera, and so it's really, really neat. It worked really great. So today we're going to, another announcement I wanted to make was that the New England Regional Genealogical Conference will be happening in Springfield, Mass. This year. It happens every 2 years. And I brought along with me the program. And if you're in the area, it's a really great 3-day event. And it's close enough, being in Springfield, Mass. You can go down and back in a day with no problem. I'll put a link to the program in the chat so you guys can download it and take a look at it. A lot of great workshops, and it's early registration, so there's a discount if you want to register for the entire conference today or up to a certain point. And I think only other announcement was that we're going to have our next meeting on March 4th, which is a Saturday, the first Saturday. We have Brooks and on Zoom. Wayne, did you have any announcements or anything you wanted to say?
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Okay, so we'll get started so we can use all the time here. We're going to get Wayne to do connecting DNA tests to family trees. So
Okay, so Benson, if you've taken a test, a good number of people, I mean, it's different. There are different reasons to take these tests. So for me, it was to pursue genealogy, and Jerry's going to talk a little bit more about the ethnicity estimates, which is probably the reason a lot of people do it. Just they want to see what kind of things come up to say how you're, what your ethnicity is. To me, that's kind of a small part of it, though, and so I'm going to focus the next few minutes here on using the DNA test to how you might find it useful for genealogy. Okay. Maybe I can. There we go. Okay, so the when you get the results back, you get a list of people that match you genetically in some form, and you can look at them one at a time, of course. And they usually give you each company gives you a way to actually contact your match. Frankly, what I've discovered is that most people that will respond are people that are already interested in genealogy. Other people have, you can tell frequently when they last signed in whether they have much of an interest or not, and going beyond that. Anyway, instead of just looking at them one at a time, it's possible to group people with by the genetic information that you have to create a genetic family tree versus a genealogy family tree. So what I'm focusing on here is that if you can combine the two, it gives you much better results. You can make better use of the results. At the very least, now the companies will help you sort things out by which matches come from your mother's side and which come from your father's side. Unless, of course, you test siblings or whatever, and then you're going to have they're going to be both. But anyway, one of the first ways to sort it out is which side of the family is the match from. So you can use the genealogy then to determine, how you're connected to the person that you match by comparing your tree to a DNA relative's tree. Of course, this assumes that, that's the advantage and why it's important for people to put up a public family tree so that that kind of comparison can be done. All right, so on the website of the testing company, you can create a tree from scratch, or you can upload a GEDCOM file, which is just a file transfer protocol, so that you can have a family tree, and then you can just upload the tree without having to retype everything. Except that if you tested it at 23andMe, that site does not support creating a tree or uploading a tree, but it does give you a way to link your results to an existing tree if you have one online. Then the next step would be that you need to connect the test results to where you are in your your online family tree, your profile on the tree. So it needs to know who you are in that tree in order to show you the give you the connections. And it also gives you a way to connect known relatives to their profiles in your tree. So in other words, when you get DNA results, you figure out how that person is related to you, and then you can connect their results to your results by using both genealogy and the DNA results. So if you test with Ancestry or 23andMe, you can download the test data and then upload it for free to the 3 other websites that are frequently used. There may be others, but anyway, Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, and GEDmatch. And GEDmatch is not a testing company. It's just a website that allows you to compare your results with other people who may have tested with other companies. So it's a useful tool. I'm going to focus on the ones that the testing companies themselves. So Family Tree DNA, 23andMe, MyHeritage, and Ancestry. So at Family Tree, the test you want to use is the Family Finder test. They also do mitochondrial tests and they do Y-DNA tests. But in terms of what I'm talking about here, you want to focus on that Family Finder test. The test kit has its own kit number. You're identified by your kit number. And then if you connect a tree to it, your kit is then associated with that tree. So you can create, again, as I said, in most of these websites, and this one too, you can create a tree from scratch, but it's much easier if you have genealogy software you're using, just to create a GEDCOM, or if you have an online tree somewhere, you can also usually create a GEDCOM from that. It just gives you a way to transfer that file and that information, and then you can upload it into Family Tree. So just going to kind of quickly go through each of these, where to look on their website. I think the important thing is whatever company you test with, it's important to spend some time, getting to know your way around their website. So in this case, you're looking for, as I said, family finder. These are autosomal DNA matches. In other words, the 22 out of your chromosomes, they're using those to create the results. And you can, if there's somebody else who's also got a tree on there, you should be able to find a common ancestor, assuming, they've done enough of a tree. It is kind of frustrating sometimes when people, you get all excited to see that there's a tree there, and then you find out that all they did was put their name, and it's a tree of one person, so it doesn't help you a whole lot. But anyway, for the ones that do, on the main page, you scroll down to what's the item that says other tools. And this allows you to create and share a family tree to identify common ancestors with matches. And linking your known family finder matches helps you to sort through other matches. In other words, you're gonna, once you have somebody that you connect with, you can see who else you share that same DNA with. This is what the page looks like when, page of matches. Part that I've circled there, it does try to sort out your paternal matches, maternal matches, and which ones are both. Then it gives you a chance, and if I can. Sharon, can you do that? I'm sorry, I think it freezes up my. I can't use the mouse. Oh, well, yeah. There's somebody in the waiting room.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway, so it does try to sort that. I wanted to try to highlight if you look under where it says relationship range under this first one here by Ramona, where it says third cousin there, I went in and confirmed that she is a third cousin. It's estimating that it was a second or third cousin, the website in, but once you get a chance to actually go in and see how you're connected to the person, you can confirm it, and so then it will come up there. Otherwise, there's a link there that asks you to try to do that. In terms of where to go, you see the green arrow at the top of my screen there on those menus. You go to tree management. I already have a family tree in there, so but you would go here to add a tree, or you can delete a tree if you decide you don't want it there. And obviously you could change it if you wanted to delete the tree and put something else in there. But anyway, tree management is where to go. It brings up a screen like this where you can upload a JetCom, or at least that's what I would recommend doing, since you don't, again, so you don't have to retype things.
Does everybody know what a JetCom is?
It's just a file. It's like in word processing, it would just be like a text file where you could, a generic text file that any word processor could open up. This is a file of your family tree that allows you to transfer information from one website, one program to another.
Right, so you can export it from the software or from Ancestry or something if the tree is there, right?
Yeah.
And where do you find JetCom? Just the website?
It would be on the website. In other words, in each of these websites, any genealogy software or these websites like Ancestry give you a way to download the information that you already have there, which means you can then save it to your computer and then upload it, put it up on another website. it just saves you a lot of typing. You know, once you have a tree that you want to use, it just makes it so much easier if you want to explore some of these other websites.
But it won't upload images. Like if you have images attached to your
Yeah, I don't
family
think
tree, it won't do that, but you get all the texture.
save you from adding all the people,
Yeah.
the basic information about them. Okay, so this, you go to this spot, you can choose this, you choose a file off your computer, and then it'll upload that for you. All right, 23andMe, now they do things a little bit differently. What we're focusing on here is their ancestry and traits service. They do a lot of other stuff with health related stuff. This is really the genealogy part of it. What you're looking for here are DNA relatives. So you can't, this website, it doesn't let you create or upload a family tree, but you can, if you already have a tree that's online, for example, if you had an ancestry tree, you could create a link on 23andMe that would allow people to go to your tree on, say, Ancestry as the example. Obviously, the tree needs to be online somehow. From the main page, you find a drop-down menu next to your name. With that little, on my screen here, where it says MB, that's the person, and then the little caret there pops open, and then you get a menu where you can choose view your profile. You want to view your profile, scroll down to where it says family background, open the tree that you want to link to, and then you just simply copy the link off of the page that you've opened up. Say if you went to Ancestry, opened up your tree on Ancestry, there'll be a link in the, you know, in the URL bar, and you can copy that and just paste it into 23andMe. And then that creates a link that you can see here on my screen where it says family tree. I've connected this to an Ancestry family, my family tree on Ancestry. So that's pretty simple to do. I wish more people did it, because the ones I really wanted to find, none of the people put up a tree. So this is just, again, a picture of the screen where you're under your profile, where you can paste the link. Down there at the bottom there, it says share a link to your online family tree. You just simply, you can just copy and paste copy it out of wherever you have it and paste the link in there. So that's even simpler to do. You don't have to download anything. Okay, so 23andMe does have some other interesting features though. There's no genealogy. But 23andMe constructs a family tree based solely on your DNA and your closest matches, looking for, it predicts how you're related to those people. You'll see the word centimorgan come up. Centimorgan is just simply a way of measuring how much, how much genetic information you share with the person that you're matching. So it predicts relationships based on how many centimorgans that you share with that person. Just a little caution. I mean, it's not always correct in what it does. It is important because the other thing it's doing, it's using your age to better predict how you're related to the person. So what it means is when you're in 23andMe, you need to be sure that you put in your birthday and make sure you put in your correct birthday. And it uses that, so it needs to know your age in order to figure out your relationship with the people that you match. So for example, if two matches share 100 centimorgans, but are 50 years apart in age, they'll have a different genealogical relationship than two matches that share the same amount of DNA but are of a similar age. The chart that I have up here just gives you an example of this. Comes from the shared centimorgan project is the word I'm looking for. So, I'll show you some references at the end. It comes from a website called DNA Painter. It gives a lot. In other words, this is kind of what's going on behind the scenes. These companies don't necessarily use the shared centimorgan project, but they have something similar, where they're using the amount of DNA you share to predict how you're related to the person. So as you can see here, with 100 centimorgans, there are a variety of people that you might have a relationship with, and it's, so it's a 38% chance, for example, that it might be a second cousin once removed. So it could be a second cousin. It could be, it might be a half cousin. It could be even less likely when you get down to like a 6% chance that it's like a half nephew or something. So in other words, what I'm trying to get at here is that there are a lot of possibilities of how you could be related, and the software is trying to sort that out a little bit and give you the best possible estimate of how you're connected to the other person. Anyway, so what it's going to do is use this background information to create a tree. You won't see this. You won't see this screen with all these percentages. But I just wanted to try to talk about what it's trying to do behind the scenes. So anyway, to go to that genetic tree on 23andMe, you go to Family and Friends, and then you click on Family Tree, and it creates a tree that looks like this. So it's a little hard to see, perhaps, just from kind of describe it here. So down at the person that this MB is the person that is done the test, and then as you can see, it's putting in guesses as to how closely related you are to all of the matches. The matches all appear basically on the bottom line of this tree. They're screen names. In other words, you can connect to those people. Here's a little bit closer look at it. If you can figure out how you're related to them, you can change those dots and put in the name of the person. So what I've done here is put in we have MB. I put in a parent and a set of grandparents that are known, and then what I'm looking at down at the bottom there are people linked matches that you have where they're trying to estimate that that's how you might be related to each other.
So it's automatically populated in the tree.
It's automatically.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was wrong, Michael. I stated you manually needed to add them, but what you need to do is kind of validate what the connection is then.
You have to manually add people that, like if you want to put in grandparents, great grandparents and so forth, you have to add those in yourself. The matches come up by themselves. You can add people. If you have a known match and it's not on the tree for some reason, you can add it. Well, it gives them some flexibility on editing this. If you can make changes if you know the relationship isn't quite right that it's come up with, you can change that, and you can, like I said, you can actually add people. In this case, most of the time it's kind of a shot in the dark because like I said, I looked at all those matches and none of them had a tree that could help me figure out exactly how they're related. So that's where it becomes important to connect to the tree. All right, so my heritage. This website is a lot, if you've never seen it, it's a lot like Ancestry. It does DNA testing. It allows you to create, do some genealogy, and it does have a lot of historical records, just the way Ancestry does, so that you could build a family tree on my heritage. So there, again, to get started with this, you go under the family tree area and you can import a JetCon. Well, you could create a tree from scratch on the website, or like I said, you go to this part where it says import a tree, which you already have. This probably gives it back to a better definition. JetCom is the standard method of transferring a family tree from an existing tree that you already have. And then once you have that file on your computer, you can simply you click the little browse button to find it on your computer, and then you click on upload to put it on the website. You do need to you want to connect your kit to the profile on the family tree. So under the and unfortunately it's off on the right side there. Under you choose manage DNA kits and drop down menu. We didn't test this out for fun. Well, this is so under DNA, you go down to manage DNA kits. That's really all I need to show here, and then from there, oh, it's a little weird. I forgot to point this out. Under manage, there's three little dots on the right hand side. You click on those dots, and then it opens up a way to do this. So you got to again manage DNA kits. You just need to remember that those three little dots on the right hand side by your name, by your kit, are important. You click on them, and then it opens up a way for you to assign a kit, or in my case here, I've already have one in there, so you can reassign the kit of the person who tested to their profile on the family tree. So by assigning the kit, you enable what's called the theory of family relativity, which is, I found a fascinating feature. Once you've done that, you can open up, you can look through your list of matches. You want to find ones that have a theory. And you simply click on the link that says view theory. And what that does is open up this. And what it does is attempt to automatically help you figure out how you connect with the person that you're DNA matched with. So on the left-hand side is my tree on my heritage. So it starts with me, goes to my parents. And then what it does in the middle, it's gone out online and searched through the family tree online, this kind of universal tree, world tree, I guess they call it. It searched through there and looked at my tree, and over on the right hand side is the person that I matched, and it looked through her tree. So it's using other family trees in between to try to figure out a connection between me and the person that I match. Which is kind of cool because obviously the person that I matched here didn't have a very extensive family tree. But she had enough of a one. She had her and her parents, and then her parents were found on the family search website. And going back and connecting to find out, who our common ancestor is. Now, the other thing that's important is they don't emphasize it a lot, but they do, where I've circled it in pink up there on the top left. It wants you to it asks you, is this theory correct? So you can either confirm it or reject it. And which I thought is kind of a nice feature. It doesn't, none of this is automatic. It's giving you a suggestion and it's asking you to figure out what, is it correct? Is it accurate? Anyway, it's kind of a cool feature. I have seen it search through, it doesn't search this through automatically through family search. It will use other trees on my heritage. And I have seen multiple trees, it'll start on my tree, go to 2 or 3 other matches. Genealogical matches, especially, is what it's doing here. It's looking through family trees. It's not doing it just by DNA. And then in the end, trying to figure out through all those trees how you might connect to the person that you are genetically connected to. Last one. So ancestry. Again, the test is ancestry DNA. You can do genealogy on the website, and you can search through historical records. As with the others, under trees, you can go to create and manage trees. You open up that, pull up that drop-down menu, and then you choose create and manage trees. There's a link there for you either to start from scratch to create a tree, or again, upload the DEDCOM file. When you do when you link your test to the tree, you first click on that DNA tab, then find the settings button on the right hand side of the window, and that's, you want to go to the settings. Under settings, you scroll down to link DNA to the tree. In other words, you need to tell Ancestry who you are in your own tree. They give a nice summary here about the advantages of doing that. You can see how you're related to your DNA matches. Again, if you've chosen to see and be seen by other people, and obviously the person you match also has to agree to that. You might see specific places in a region where your family lived and migration paths. Information about living people is protected. You won't see that. And they won't see you. You can only link your DNA results to a family tree that is associated with your Ancestry account. So, you have to do this inside of Ancestry itself. And and again, it needs to be a public tree in order for them to see you and you to see them. All right, once you've done that, again, this is the part that I enjoy the most, is that you have this, what they call through lines, very similar to MyHeritage theory of family relativity. It's looking for how you're connected to the people that you match, genealogically as well as genetically. So you'll see a screen that looks like this. It shows you how you may be related to your DNA matches through the ancestors that you share. You get, you only get these through lines, you know, if from your tree and the matches tree. So in this case, you'll see it has multiple generations here. The screen only shows what have I got up to? Great grandparents. It goes on a couple more generations. Obviously, the further back in time we go, and if somebody else has also got an extensive family tree, the more likely you would have more people to look at. What you see when you open that up, though, in this case, I just picked a great grandparent. So it shows you this through lines has used the family trees to connect me to a number of people that have tested and matched. So the people that I match are all on the bottom, the very bottom of each column. And so I was kind of happy to see this because it brought up other cousins that I didn't know about, for one thing. And for some of them, they were kind of into genealogy, and we've been able to communicate with each other, through this, through ancestry. So again, the people on the bottom of each one, those are the people that tested, and it's the genealogy that allows you to see, where, who the common ancestor is and how you're related to the others. So,
So the penguins are ones you didn't know about?
no, I was just trying to protect their privacy. Those are all names. Sorry, I just covered the names. Yeah. Each one of those people, I mean, you can click on their link and just communicate. You can send them a message through Ancestry. Whether you get a response or not, of course, usually it has to be somebody that's also kind of interested in the family history. What else? Oh, well, I mean, this is just one, this is just picking one great grandparent. So the same kind of thing could be done over and over again with other matches on that through lines page. So just a word or two about where some of this could mess you up. This endogamy is a practice of marrying within a specific social group, religious denomination, caste, or ethnic group, and rejecting those from others who are unsuitable for marriage or other close personal relationships. That's straight from Wikipedia. What happens though is it's more than just having a cousin marriage. Endogamy means that there are cousin marriages that are repeated over and over in your family history. And that's going to affect how you're related to those people in terms of how much DNA you share with them. So if you have multiple recent cousin marriages in the last 3 or 4 generations, you will share too much DNA to fit into any one relationship because you are related to them probably in multiple ways. So it can kind of mess up your results if you're looking at strictly how much DNA you share with those people. So anyway, I've not experienced this myself. If I was testing back in the 1800s, I probably would have a problem with endogamy because I can trace both my parents back to a common ancestor. So they had some cousin marriages back in town. But it doesn't affect me at this point because I'm just, it's so far in the past. But if you're in a different situation where it's a tight knit community, it could change. It will change the amount of DNA that you share with people. So, what you try to, if you have this problem, what you're trying to do is sort out the difference between someone who's closely related to you and someone who shares DNA because of endogamy. In other words, because of the whole community that you're part of. So here, these are suggestions from a woman named Diane Selkar, and I just thought some of her explanations I've looked to. I mean, I've read parts of her books and so forth. And these are some of the basic tips that she had. So you want is what you need to pay attention to is not just the total amount of DNA that you share, because that will make it look like you're probably more closely related than you really are. So she suggests you look at the size of the pieces of DNA that you share. You want the largest segment of shared DNA to be larger than 20 centimorgans. So anyway, that's a way to try to help sort out who these people are. In other words, some of your DNA is coming from real shared ancestors, and the rest is because you and your match are both part of the same ethnic group. So that affects how you're related to each other. It'll make it look like you're a closer cousin than you really are. She does say that for the most part, the filtering tools at Ancestry and 23andMe are doing a good job of eliminating small DNA segments so that those in the endogamous communities will hardly even notice an elevated amount of DNA. This was kind of controversial. I mean, I guess that's why Ancestry and 23andMe are doing it, but it also eliminates other people that you match that at least some people who really get into this want to know about. I have not gone into it in that great depth that I want to look at somebody that I only share, 5 centimorgans with, for example, because it means you're, in my case, it means you're like an 8th cousin.
I remember when Ancestry announced that they're going to eliminate those shares below a certain centimorgan number, that people, went in and downloaded their DNA so they could capture those shares. Before they were eliminated.
Before they were.
So they were kept in a spreadsheet.
Well, there are some people that I know, that have made use of that. They have a much higher level of expertise in looking at DNA than I do. All right, so just this is Diane's book here. She has a website called Your DNA Guide, and she has a book also called Your DNA Guide. If you're interested in finding out more about the DNA painter, the fellow's name is Blaine Bettinger, and he also has a book that's excellent. And I've also found it really helpful to do this use this DNA Explain. It's a blog by a woman named Roberta Estes. Well, anyway, that is it for me.
Great, thanks. That was
probably have confused everybody, but
that's a lot of.
The point that I want, the basic point I'm trying to make here is just that number one, to get the most out of your test result, you need to put up a family tree. Just keep it as simple as that. So whoever you tested with, create a family tree on their website, or if it's 23andMe, at least link to a tree that you have somewhere online. that they could, you could even use the tree at Family Search or WikiTree. You know, if you could check and see if you're in those trees, you could just link to those. But anyway, someone, that's the basic thing I'm trying to say. There are a lot of ways to try to then sort through all of your matches. I really find it kind of fun to play around with the ones on the through lines on Ancestry or the theory of family relativity on MyHeritage. Because they do a lot of the work for you. So, trying to keep it as simple. That's kind of my main point.
Just validate with your genealogical research.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did we have questions?
Yeah, a question you can unmute yourself and ask if you'd like. Or put it in the chat either way. There were a number in the chat. You might want to just review those, Ryan, and I made some responses to them. So hopefully I gave the right answers.
Question: how do you protect your privacy on this?
Yeah, well, that's kind of a push and pull kind of thing. You can make these things totally private, but then you won't get the advantage of, in order for you to see other people's family trees, they need to make them public, or you need to contact them and they need to agree to let you see their tree. So in other words, it's possible to test this and not do anything, it's possible to take these tests and not do anything else with them. You can keep everything private.
Yeah, is your question about your DNA privacy? Or rather than your...
I think it's more or less on someone sort of stealing information and using it for, and using it illegally. Like, in other words, they might come up with passwords or information that, could be a problem with banking or, other things. I mean, is it current information that goes on these sites? I mean, is it personal information or is it more information on my, great grandparents or?
Well, these websites protect living people, but it doesn't take too much to figure out, to be honest with you. In other words, if I get a match, I'm gonna know who that person is. And if they've got a tree up, let's say maybe their parents and their siblings are all listed as private, but they've listed a grandparent who's passed away, it's not too hard to figure out really who the person in between is. You can go to just look up a census record probably and figure out who the people in between are.
Social Security death index.
So, yeah, it's kind of a decision you have to make. Obviously, I don't use my mother's maiden name for anything.
Exactly. That's the
Because
kind
I've got this stuff up online all over the place. So I've got it on 5 different websites here. So it's kind of a choice you have to make yourself. Like I said, living people are protected, but once you start researching the genealogy, I've pretty much usually been able to figure out if they have a family tree up, even if it's like a great grandparent, a lot of times I can do the rest of the genealogy and figure out how they're connected to me, and who the people are.
Right.
So there is that risk, yeah.
Some of the concerns that I've read about over the years have been how, private is your actual DNA that has been uploaded to companies, whether or not third parties could have access to your DNA. So for instance, with 23andMe, they do health risk. And so could an insurance company get access to your DNA if you're showing that you have a potential risk of a BRCA gene for breast cancer? So those are some of the issues. And the other one is law enforcement, access to DNA databases when they're doing cold case research. You know, you may not have committed a murder, but maybe a third cousin did. And so all of a sudden, you're part of an investigation. Anyway,
Well, that just recently happened.
yeah, it's all the time. Could be in the news now.
Those murders at the dorm or
Yeah,
apartment in Utah,
right, I don't.
oh no, Idaho. They were able to get a DNA sample off of a knife sheet,
Right.
and from there, they had some genetic genealogists working on who that person was related to, and then once they identified that, they went around and looked through garbage, pulled out, you know, get another DNA sample.
Right. Law enforcement, you know, have a CODIS database, which is a database of basically people who have committed crimes. But now with the commercial databases, the consumer databases, they would have access to anybody who has done a test. And so, for instance, in GenMatch, when you upload your DNA there, you have a choice to opt in or opt out to law enforcement inquiries. So if you opt out, that means that law enforcement would not have access to your DNA for research they were doing on, say, you know, somebody who had committed a crime. So it's all a personal choice, but those are some of the things you have to decide. What's that?
Couldn't they get a loan?
They probably could get
They
it.
could, but I mean, they would have to have, you know, what the probable cause, not just a fishing expedition, that everybody gets lumped into this, you know, as part of their investigation, whether or not you were related or not. So they would have to have some probable cause. And, you know, there are these DNA companies now. One is called Parabon. You probably see the woman, her name is CC Moore. She's, you know, finding her roots in these DNA programs where they do work with law enforcement to figure out, you know, these cold cases where they find a, you know, body and you know, 20 years ago when they still have the DNA for that for suspects. Anyway, it's real interesting. It makes for good TV as well. Any more questions?
Yeah. I have one. You know, there's 3 or 4 main companies out there doing this testing. They each have their own database of people who have been tested, and they must be in different formats. But what we're saying, or what you're saying, is that if you go through one of these services, say 23andMe or Ancestry, and you generate a GEDCOM file, it will actually be able to work with the other testing databases, be able to find the matches in those other testing databases? Or is that not a good way to describe it?
What you would need, to, not just genealogy though, what you would need to do is download your test results off of Ancestry. And see, 23andMe and Ancestry, you test with them, and that's you can download that data, DNA data, and then the other 3 companies will let you upload the data, so you don't have to do a test over again. So it's not just the genealogy, it's also the genetics, it's also the DNA test. So you could do both. You know, for example, on Ancestry, if you have a tree, family tree, and you tested with them, you did Ancestry DNA, you could download the GEDCOM, you could download your DNA test results, and then upload it to, well, you could do family tree DNA, you could do MyHeritage, you could do GEDmatch. Those 3 other companies, you could do it with them. So, does that make sense?
So there are 2 files. There's a GenCom, which is genealogy, and then there's the raw DNA, which is your DNA that interaction with GetCom in a system.
I guess another way to ask the question, each of these services, say 23andMe or Ancestry, are flexible enough so they will accept the format coming from the other testing service to be able to do these matches.
Well, those two won't. Unfortunately,
Those are two that
you
don't.
can upload the GetCom, you can upload a GetCom, but you can't upload any DNA data. You can go the other way though, you can download it from them. Like if you tested at, let's say you test at MyHeritage, you cannot upload that data to Ancestry or to 23andMe. But and it just depends on the policy of the company. The only advantage of doing it that way is just to save you some money. Like if you test it Ancestry and you want to have the broadest net, if you will, to find who you might match, then you can upload it to these other companies. There are others out there. I've not done a lot with it, but there's Living DNA, and I'm not sure. When I did a test with them, because most of my ancestors are from Great Britain, so they're a testing company that has they're based in England, and they have a lot of the comparisons that you do. You can see different regions in England where you might match people. They've expanded where they do some, but when I first started, they didn't even have a way to match other people who had tested, but they've expanded that. They're not a website there where you can do more research, they don't have any records that you can search through or anything like that. Not like Ancestry. They're pretty much strictly a testing company.
There's a question, Chip, does that answer your question about subscription to companies?
Well, when you
It's still
upload,
not clear that if I upload my GEDCOM and DNA analyses into other sites, MyHeritage, etc., do I have access to the trees, or do I have to have a subscription to see any of the matches that I would have?
to see the trees, you probably would have to pay another fee. You may not need to subscribe. In fact, I'm pretty sure you don't need to subscribe.
MyHeritage is like that, it's a one-time.
But there's like a one-time fee. What you would see is the people that you match, though. In other words, you would and you would have a way to contact those matches.
Yeah, so you might be able to get to the tree that way.
I think that's why they do it. They encourage people to upload their data, and then they try to upsell you to subscribe and use their website.
There's another question from Maggie in the chat. In Ancestry, are names that they say likely to recognize in my tree that have matches, but none of their names are in my tree.
Well, if you're looking at a list, if they tell you the most frequent names, is that the question?
Yeah, she's.
No.
Maggie, if you can ask it if you want to unmute
Are you
yourself.
there?
Yes, she said yes.
Okay. So you see, you'll see a list of names, the most frequent surnames that are in their tree. What you need to remember, of course, is that the reason they're probably not in your tree is that they're probably researching other parts of the family. For example, I've got a second cousin that does a lot of genealogy. Anything we do with my Blanchard side of the family, where she and I are related, we'll find a lot of common names. But if she's researching, let's see, it's her father. Yeah, it was her father that was a Blanchard. So any research she does on her mother's side, her mother's parents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and so forth, are, they're not connected to me, and they're not gonna show up in my family tree, you know, and as a way to, they're not gonna match anything in my family tree, because it's her, you know, the other side of the family, basically. So that's why you probably, you'll see a list of names that, you know, are kind of surprises, you know, say, well, I'm not related to any of those people. Why is that coming up? But it's just because they've done some research on the side of the family that you're not connected to. They're the in-laws, if you will.
It says they are all on their mother's side.
Yeah, well, it'd be on the mother's, it could be on the mother's side, but if, I don't know how I'm explaining this. Right. If you're connected you're connected through somebody on your mother's side, and that person is researching all of the other people on her father's side or his father's side, those people are not going to be in your tree. That, you know, that's why those names pop up there.
That's why it's trying important to, if you can, distinguish whether your matches are coming on your maternal or paternal side. Also, it's the size of the match. If it's a very, very small percentage of Morgan, it just might be a random match, and you really aren't related anymore. So you're.
Oh, wait a minute. I was talking about genealogy, not genetics here.
Oh, okay.
In other words, when you get those things, it'll tell you you match the person,
Yeah.
but you don't match all of the people, all of their ancestors.
Right.
In other words, you're only matching the segment of ancestors
Common.
that you have in common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So-
still, that doesn't
So
matter.
even on the mother's side, let's say that person has researched, you know, her mother, but, you know, once you start branching out, and let's say you research your mother's grandmother's line, well, you might not be related to that side of the family at all.
Right. But if it's a genetic match,
Well, if it's a
and then
genetic,
it's telling you this is a fourth cousin once removed, well, it depends, or sixth cousin once removed, that's a very, very small
well,
segment.
it's gonna
So
be small.
therefore, and they might have a surname that you don't recognize, well, obviously, because that person's really not related.
They're, well, that's possible.
Yeah.
It's a really small amount.
Yeah, very small amount, yeah.
I mean, that's where it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a fourth cousin,
Yeah,
you know, you've got to go pretty far back.
yeah. It is what,
Find the common
at least,
ancestor.
what, fourth, third grandparents.
Great, you know, you're back, yeah, like a fourth.
You're not in the will,
You're not the real.
It's true.
Okay,
What else? We have,
any more questions? Okay, so maybe we'll start on
shift gears.
my confusion here. Okay, I'm going to talk about ethnicity. Well, let's see. Okay, so the ethnicity estimates, that's what they are at the four major DNA companies. So we'll start with kind of blocking this. Get rid of that. There we go. So I'm just going to go over some basic concepts here first. So how DNA testing companies analyze your DNA. So all of these things are obviously done with technology. So there are various chips that they use to analyze your DNA. Each of these companies have their own proprietary chip. So that's one reason why, you know, you may be wondering about if you're starting to compare your DNA with other companies, why your ethnicity comes out a little bit differently. Another reason is that the DNA is then broken up into tiny segments, and those are compared to the reference populations that company uses. So each company has different reference populations. Those samples are from each company's test database and any public research project that has already been done. So that's how they are able to gather these test comparisons. And if Wayne, if you can answer questions in the chat, go ahead and do so. While I go on, otherwise we can just deal with them at the end. Different segments of DNA are measured, but there's sometimes overlap on the DNA that's being measured and in the reference populations. The results are then statistically analyzed at a threshold percentage calculated, and this will be the estimate of your ethnicity percentage. And we'll look at that. It'll say you are, 35% Italian or 7% West Indies or whatever, and that's how they come up with those percentages. And then the database totals and reference can only be estimated, therefore reports may not be what you think they should be. So you see yourself as 100% Irish, but you'll come up with other data. Okay, so here's a little bit more on reference populations. They use people that's already in their database, and they therefore have different reference populations depending on the systems. Unless you test in all four of them. Not everyone is in the reference population. They need to meet this criteria. All four grad presidents come from the same non-colonial geography. And they do this so that you're not coming from a primarily immigrant country. You have all these people that immigrated to the United States, Australia, Canada from other areas. So they don't want to use those. They want to use people who are, have generations in a particular country. And the testing are going to be closely related to somebody already in the database, so they need broad coverage of a region. And I highly recommend this particular YouTube channel called Family History Fanatics. They do a lot on DNA, and their videos are very short. So if you just want to just get real, short and factual information, this is a very good one to use. So I'll be talking first about Ancestry.com. Now, this is the largest database with over 21 million test takers in the database. And it's one of the oldest, if not the oldest. It began as a consumer database in 2012. And these are their the ancestry reference panels. They have, as I said, 21 million kits. They have over 44,000 samples, over 70 regions. And what's interesting is that these are some of the regions that we like: Europe, Russia, England, Southern Italy, whatever. But if you look at those numbers compared to these, like indigenous Cuba, which has over 9,034 samples. Puerto Rico, indigenous Puerto Rico, has 3,872 samples. Now, why is that? Well, it's because most of those samples were part of a research project that was done, a public research project that was included in the database. So those areas are going to be sort of overrepresented from perhaps other ones that you might be looking at. And so what they do here is they survey over 700 locations on the DNA and look how much of that DNA are shared with people from these reference populations and each ethnicity. So this is sort of their estimates and how this works. the DNA, and this is what Wayne was talking about a little bit. You have these DNA, the DNA ethnicity estimates, the circles are regions with solid circles, solid dots are your ethnicity. You come from comparing your DNA to the DNA of people in our reference panel or in the test takers reference panel. The little circles with a dot are communities of people who share significant matches with each other and likely descend from someone who traveled to the same place at about the same time. So that's how they break it down a little bit more from the regions that are there. There's a little bit on the communities. So these are the defined groups with families with long histories in a particular part of the world. And this is my DNA community, by the way, Calabria. And my family is right up around here from locally, a little village called Chidella, and I get many matches from that area, so I know the valley. So where are you from? This timing in DNA ethnicity. So going back to the same genetic genealogist that Wayne used, Diane Souther, and she has this mango theory to explain this concept. So the mangoes are grown in Brazil, right? That's where they begin. Then they're picked and they're transported over the sea. Then you start to wonder, are those mangoes from Brazil or are they from the Atlantic? In Texas, well, they land loaded in the trucks and then transported over land. So are these mangoes now from Brazil or from Texas? The mangoes are loaded interstate. Are the mangoes from Brazil, Texas, or North Carolina? So where's your mango from? So timing is important. Looking at DNA over a long span of time depends on when you are asking about your ethnicity. It's kind of clever little way.
It is.
And that's another YouTube. Your DNA guide, which is her YouTube channel. Okay, so here's how they can change over time. So here's my estimate from 2018. So you see here I have Europeans, Southern European, Sicily, Southern Italy, and Middle East, European, Jewish, 7%, Caucasus. And then you come over here, and here's my estimate for 2023. Southern Italy, Calabria, Northern Italy, Cyprus, Norway. Where does that come from? And as you see, no European Jewish. The reference population, the reference panel changed from the ancestry in 5 years. And it winnowed out my European Jewish, at least in this particular database. So let's, so those are the ones I was going to talk about. So let's go on to MyHeritage and look at their database. So it has 6 million test kits, and they base their genetic models on 42 ethnic groups. So Ancestry, I think, was 70, I mentioned. These are 42. The database was founded in 2016, so it's relatively a newcomer. But it's probably the largest database that's testing in Europe, next to 23andMe. And the other company that does test in Europe and other world areas is Family Tree DNA, but that's a very small company. And they claim to be the only mass market database that tests heavily in the Balkans, Eskimo, Inuit, Japanese, Kenyan, Sierra Leone, Somali, and the 5 major Jewish groups. Ashkenazi, Ethiopian, Yemenite, Sephardi from North Africa, and Israelite from Iran and Iraq. So if you have Jewish heritage, it's probably a pretty good database to test it. Okay, so here are my estimates for that. And so you can see that I have and they give you a confidence level as well. So depending on where you move that little marker, you'll get a confidence level. So from over 2,100 geographic regions, and these are the similarities between your DNA and that of the group's founding mother and fathers in their particular group. And if you have a high confidence level, you're probably a member of that genetic group. Lower one is a little bit less. But as you can see, my Ashkenazi Jewish heritage is back again at 7.9%. And I'm like relatively, I think, believable here, because that's it's a lower confidence level, but still the percentage makes me think that it is really a part of my heritage. And there's a little bit more evidence later on in this presentation that will show that. So clicking on the genetic groups will tell you that this is very interesting. They will tell you the number of hits in your sample, which I was compared to, as well as any family trees. So when I click on the Ashkenazi Jewish, I get your DNA matches with this ethnicity. So these are people who have the same Ashkenazi Jewish percentage that are matching with me, and they will give me their names and a way to contact them, as well as where I can view their tree if they have one on my heritage. So the next one I'll talk a little bit about is family tree DNA, and it's one of the smaller ones with 1.2 million databases, but it was founded in February of 2010. They report over 90 population clusters for DNA comparisons, and the way they define a population cluster is can be one specific group or a few related but separate groups of people. The other thing about family tree DNA that I should mention is that we've been talking today about autosomal DNA tests. They're the only company, I think, maybe there's another one, but they're the oldest company that does Y-DNA testing and mitochondrial DNA testing. So these are the real deep DNA testing. Y-DNA only males can take, because they have the Y-DNA, and mitochondrial is for the mitochondrial female lineage. So they're rather expensive. But they do sales as well. But the costs are over, depending on the number of markers that you want to test for Y, it can get very expensive. But anyway, they do those others. So here's the family tree of DNA reference populations I mentioned, and these are my matches there. So as you can see, Southern Europe is a big one, Italian Peninsula, and I do have some European Jewish, but it's a very small percentage, but it's a small database. So, but it does reinforce that Jewish DNA in my DNA. Yemenite, Sephardi, and Ashkenazi. Okay, 23andMe. This was the first company I tested in April of 2011. So my sample has been around for 11 years in that database, and it was actually an earlier chip as well. So they're asking me now to upgrade to their V3 chip. which would cost me another $120 or so, but I haven't done that, so.
Do you have a definition of those chips with some?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't, maybe we could. Look at them later, but,
I think it's just a matter of how they process it.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, it must be, how they're doing it. You know, it's their technology, that's the only thing I can think of, is how they're taking that saliva that you have and transferring it. You know, so that they can analyze the DNA, but that we can look that up. So 23andMe claims to have two reference populations, a regional level data and a country level. For the regional, they have 47 data sets of families who lived for several hundred years in a particular region. And then the country level is where more of the recent ancestors live. So that's within the more recent past. So that's how they define the regional and country level. And so here's what I just a little bit of a breakdown of what their ancestry reports look like. So again, 47 different ancestry populations compared to genomes of over 14,000 people with known ancestry. When a segment of your DNA matches the DNA of one of the 45 populations, they assign you that ancestry to the segment of the DNA. And then those individual segments are calculated separately, then added together to get overall composition. You get a Neanderthal ancestry with 23andMe. I don't know if the other ones do that.
I don't think they do.
Do they?
What percentage did you get?
Yeah, I'm a lower one. It's better if you have it. Believe it or not. You get your haplogroup DNA, and that ROA1A is a very rare haplogroup in 23andMe. It's only found 1 in 2,100 samples. And the ROA is found in the Middle East, North Africa, including Ashkenazi Jewish communities. So there's another proof of evidence that I do have that DNA. At least that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
So a haplogroup, should have mentioned this, is really refers to a family of lineages that share a common ancestor, and they're a part of a set of mutations. Because that's how we define DNA. It's all mutations.
Right.
Otherwise, 99% of our DNA is the same. It's just when we start to mutate is how we become different. You know, with that. So at any rate, it's telling me that I'm almost 80% Italian, 2.6% from the Levantine, 1.5% Coptic Egyptian, and then very small numbers in the other ones. But actually, there's no Ashkenazi Jewish report in this one, but the ROA1A kind of tells me that. They do a timeline, which I think Ancestry will do as well, showing where some of these, ancestors may have popped up in your DNA. And then you get these ethnic compositions by chromosome. So they do kind of a chromosome browser where they match where the ancestries might come from. So this is from the 90% confidence level. And they're all color coded. So you can see where on the chromosome those particular ethnicities come to the 90% level. Here's 50%. And then this is a comparison of 90 versus 50%. I'm sorry, you can't see it so well, but just the concept is that you can look at these you can look at these chromosomes and see where your ethnicity is found on that. And again, the Ashkenazi Jewish ethnicity doesn't come up, but maybe in the Levantine area is where that might. So there's a little bit of contradiction there, but with the maternal haplogroup is where I think it's happening. I believe that still stands. So in terms of the takeaways for ethnicity estimates, your original test will provide a chart percentage of ethnicity, and these are all estimates. Over time, these will change due to the answers that you know and those that you don't know. Depending where these reference populations are, some may be more accurate than others. Algorithms are different between companies, and therefore you can compare to yourself with different companies, you may find different ethnicities. And this is an interesting test you can do. With GenMatch, you could download your DNA from Ancestry, and then if you've tested with 23andMe or tested with MyHeritage, download that Ancestry, then upload them both to GenMatch and compare your ethnicities between the two companies from your son, and you'll see differences.
You see differences, probably, yeah.
And then as more people test, the reference populations become more accurate as well as your DNA estimates. Now, this is a little exercise from Diane Southwood's DNA Ethnicity Results Quick Start Guide. And you can get this guide, just go to her website, your DNA guide, and you give her your email. So basically she has your email so she can send you announcements. But it's like a little 5-page guide. And so what you do here is on the chart on the left, you write the locations of your ancestors. So that family tree chart on the left. And then on the boxes on the right, so as you upload your DNA to these other companies, to these other tests, you note the ethnicities and group locations that they report out and highlight more than once, draw a box around the unique ones to that company. And then what you can do is from the box on the right to the tree on the left, which is more like a genealogical tree, you draw a line from the testing company to the person on the tree. And this connects your genetics to your genealogy. So what Wayne was presenting in his, so it's just an interesting little, back of the envelope kind of exercise you can do. And as I said, that comes from DNA Ethnicity Result Quick Start Guide. And it's yourdnaguide.com, and you can just get to it by doing that. Dash estimate. Okay, that's it to completely confuse the issue. But it is a difficult concept. I think we just have to keep going back to it and learning more about it. I highly recommend the Family History Fanatics and Diane Southwood to help navigate those DNA, the ethnicity estimates, or anything else having to do with DNA.
It can be,
Jim Howard has defined the chip. I think it looks pretty good to me. You see that? So it's simply a term used to describe the multiple DNA plots affixed to a microscopic slide, each coded for a specific genetic sequence to which a DNA sample is applied and reacted. Thank you, Chip. That's seems to be it. Any more questions?
Yeah, if nobody else has, so I did something similar to what you did, Jerry. When I first took the 23andMe test was back in 2017, I think. And just this week, I went online to look what it was saying now. And it was fairly different. I mean, the main groups were not different. I mean, a lot of my father's side, British, Irish, my mother's side, German. But the percentages were quite different and much more emphasis on the British side. And so in a way, it made me lose a little confidence in the how this is done, because, you know, through genealogy, I know my mother's side is pretty solidly German, and suddenly that percentage is much lower. So I'm a little puzzled.
It is tricky. I know with Ancestry, I know that I am connected to the British Isles, but it recently has come up with those ethnicity estimates that I have, like, I'm 4% Norwegian, and I have never found any ancestor that.
I think it has to do with the reference populations and how they change.
Is there
And
changing?
how your DNA is being compared to them, you know?
Yeah.
Or they're overlapping.
I would assume the reference populations they use are probably now larger than they used to be. So you would think to be more accurate. So
Well, that's what they say. Yeah, they think they're becoming more accurate.
Have you uploaded to the other companies?
I'm sorry,
Have you uploaded your DNA to other companies like my?
I've not at this point. No.
I think that would be an interesting, then compare what they show.
Mhm.
Or just do it to GenMatch, because that's what people upload, you know, Ancestry and 23andMe and all those other ones as well. And you can get another view of it. And maybe average all of them.
I know, it's you know, it's hard to. I mean, you have to remember the word estimate.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
It's not, you know, it's still a guess.
I mean, I think the rule of thumb is, genetic genealogy is 100% between siblings and parents, but outside of that, there are other possibilities of kinship. And it's a range. Let's see if I can real quickly show the shared DNA project, because that's really, it really shows that.
Yeah, that's a good point. They give you. They're using averages to come up with these things, but when you look actually at how people are connected to each other through DNA, it is a pretty wide range sometimes. Did you find
Right,
it?
so here's that shared DNA project that Wayne mentioned. Here's like when you pick out a share of 210 centimorgans, here are the possibilities.
And if you, Jerry, you can actually click on any of those, like uncle or niece or whatever.
Right.
If you click on it, it'll bring up the histogram.
Yeah.
And it'll show you the kind of range. These are people that submitted their, you know, had a confirmed
Right.
match, knew how they were related to each other, and it shows you the number of people in that particular thing. And so I mean, there are not many people really. I mean, but it shows you that it's a range, you know, from what, 125 to 300.
Yeah.
And even though the amount you put in was 210,
Right.
that you're looking for,
Still have advantage. Yeah.
you could have you could be on either side of that and still kind of fall within all this relationship.
Yeah, that happened to me in my story which has to do with. But anyway, here's what
And you
it
could,
looks like.
yeah, you see it as a chart.
You can actually see it as a chart. So here's cell, and this is what you're looking at in terms of the, you know,
With that much DNA.
with that much DNA, right? That's a real handy one to use when you want to look at it in a graphical way.
So, yeah, so again, it just comes back to
Yeah.
it's an estimate. There's a variety of possibilities still. especially when you're getting further out.
Right. And of course, when you choose to do your DNA, you're opening yourself up for other facts or surprises that you may not have been aware of.
Well, that's true.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Well, to get, my wife is adopted, so we were able to identify her birth mother's family. And the people we contacted, had no idea that she existed, so. For some of them, they were open to it, and they were, kind of welcomed her into the family kind of thing, and other people just cut out contact, once they realized what we were up to. That we, and she had no ulterior motive.
Yeah.
But it does raise people's cautions, I guess, why you contacted me, what do you want from me, kind of thing.
Right, what do you want?
And,
Exactly.
really all she wanted to do was find out something about,
That's right. I guess one
her
of the-
family, and specifically, she was curious about whether there were any medical issues, that were genetic.
I guess, what Blaine Bettinger says, you're entitled to know what your heritage is. You're not entitled for a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what it
It's
comes
kind
down
of like, I want to know what my DNA is, but not necessarily, a relationship with you or with your family.
to. Yeah. That happened, like I said, that happened to us. I mean, it was one of her, it was the wife of one of her first cousins, actually. Was interested in genealogy, and she and I had been trading messages back and forth, and then as soon as we came up with this whole thing, my wife is another first cousin. They just ghosted me. They just stopped responding. And, I mean, whereas, like I said, others were pretty bright. They were willing to take DNA tests and confirm what I found.
Exactly.
So it varies a lot.
Right. I mean,
How people approach it.
especially if you've been adopted, you want to know the medical history of your family.
And,
See if you're susceptible to cancers or other things, and that's the way you can do it.
It can be a shock to the family too.
Yeah.
I mean, changes how you think about people. We just had an instance where I got a communication for somebody, who wanted information, and let's see, how did that go? She was looking for information about her half siblings. And when we contacted the siblings, and they didn't realize that they had other siblings. So, it was like,
It's dead.
they knew all the ones on the father's side, but they didn't know that there were, there were three other, two brothers and a sister on the mother's side of the family. They never knew about it, so.
Yeah, so when you message
So
people,
that kind of created some, they were real, frankly, some people were fine with it, like I said, yeah, sure, go ahead and tell them, give them my contact information. They said, well, wait a minute, what do they want to do? Do they want money or what do they?
I think on all of these, you can contact all of these companies, you can contact the person, but also I think there's a block button too. So if you get contacted from somebody that you don't want to hear from, you can block them so they can't contact you.
So they can't do any more time.
Right. So you have to be real delicate with these inquiries. Especially if it's a close one.
I didn't look at it, but on that website, Diane's website, I think she has some suggestions there on how to contact.
Yes, she does. Yeah, she's very good with that.
I hadn't looked through that. I should check it out.
Yeah.
When I try to contact other people. Usually, typically what I get is no response.
Right.
The person tested
Yeah, because I mean,
2 years ago, hasn't logged in since.
yes, exactly.
And,
Exactly. They got it, maybe they got, it was a gift to them, and then they, lost interest in it.
You have their name, though, and
You have their name, yeah, and you have an email address. I mean, I even have I have a daughter of a first cousin that I actually met in person, and then we got to talking about, say, I think you're the same person that matched me on DNA. And she said, yeah, I kind of remember that. And then, so when I got, we were at a family get together, and then when I got home, I hadn't met her before. So I sent her another little message through Ancestry, but she's never responded. I don't think she ever logs in. And it's the only way I can contact her is through, I didn't take down any other details. So.
somebody out of the community, no, we should.
Yeah, I can find out if I want to, I guess. Yeah, well, I'm in contact with my cousin, I just hadn't met his daughter.
Daryl, we found surprises on both of my husband's and my side of the family tree. I was able to meet a cousin we never really had. I was able to meet a cousin of my mother. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you're discovering cousins, that means was either married again or something,
Well, that's what happened with the situation I was describing. They split up, and the husband had one set of kids, and the wife had another set of kids with another man.
Right.
So
So that's where they come up with that.
that's why you come, So that's why one half of the family doesn't know the other half exists. Well,
Well, I guess we're wrapping it up.
are there any other questions?
Any final questions? We'll put up the PowerPoints up in our Google Share, so you guys can go up and check them out again. And you can shoot us an email. If you need to. I guess that's it.
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
I guess we can sign off.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All
everybody.
right. Thanks for
Thanks.
coming, and
Thanks for checking in online.
see you in a couple of months. We'll be at Brooks Library, so any of you want to come in for that one, or you can always do it on Zoom. Okay, thanks,
See you
everybody.
then.